Over the past few weeks, I've been watching the Disney Plus original movies, and now I'm gonna do a ranking for it. So let's go. So at last place, we've got Artemis Fowl. This is like a really bad book to movie adaptation because they took a lot of the characters that I loved, like Foley, and just took away all the awesome things about them. Like Foley, he was a super funny character in the book, but then in the movie, he's just tech guy, and that's it. And he was barely in it. And also, like, I don't see what Artemis's character arc is because he goes from the start of the movie saying that there's no way his dad could be a criminal. His dad is awesome. And then at the end of the movie, he literally says, "I'm Artemis Fowl and I'm a criminal mastermind." Like, how do you get from that point to that point? It just, yeah, I don't really like this movie, as you can see. So it is at last place. This movie is kind of like if Disney made the X-Men. There's nothing like really wrong with this movie, but they didn't really do anything really right either. I didn't really connect with any of the characters. They were kind of basic. I mean, we had the rebel girl, the shy guy, the cool guy, the spoiled girl, and the really enthusiastic girl. So, I mean, the characters weren't that interesting. The plot was okay. There was some twists, like January being in with Edmund. I like that they gave Edmund's the villain, by the way, and I like that they gave him like his own motivation. That wasn't terrible, but overall, I didn't really enjoy this movie, so it's second last. At 17th place, we've got Black Beauty. I think this movie is very well written, but not exactly entertaining. Like, it's good at telling a story, just not a story that people would be interested in. Like, it's probably kind of like one of those movies that wins the Oscar, but no one has seen it because, well, it's not the type of thing that most people would be interested in. I think if you're an animal lover, especially of horses, you'll love this movie, but it wasn't really my type of thing, so that's why it's this low on the list. At number 16, we've got Phineas and Ferb the movie, Candace Against the Universe. So I think this movie would be great for like really young kids, but for most people, it's probably not very good. Like, they use a lot of plot convenience. The plot is pretty basic, it's pretty predictable, and most of the jokes aren't even that funny. I think my main problem with this movie is that Eleanor, the main character, was a bit overly enthusiastic for my liking, and I didn't really like the like fairy godmother parts and the parts of the movie that was in the motherland. But once they got to America, I started liking the movie a bit more. I like most of the characters, and I think Jane is the highlight of the movie for me. So overall, it's a pretty nice movie. It's not perfect by any means. I also think the CGI was very off. It didn't look very good. They clearly had a pretty low budget because the CGI was just terrible. But overall, it's a decent movie. think that Lady and the Tramp is a really fun and cute movie that would be really good to watch with the family. There's nothing super special about it. I do think that the animal catcher guy was not very interesting, but other than that, the other characters are fine. The story is fine. It's just a fun movie that would be pretty good to watch with the family. I think that Noelle is a very good Christmas movie that gives off the same kind of Christmas spirit feels, but has a different kind of concept with a female Santa. I think if there's a new Christmas movie that you want to see that you've never seen before, I think Noelle would be a good pick. I think for the most part, this is just a pretty fun story. They did like save most of the character development for the end. Like for the first probably two acts of the movie, it was just Timmy doing his detective thing. He didn't really care about anything else. He all he cared about was his agency. And that did change in the end, but I don't know if it was like really an earned change. It kind of just most of the character development, most of the change happened at the end, and then the rest of the movie was just kind of developing the plot. But overall, it's a pretty fun movie, and it was very engaging. I think that Magic Camp is a great story with a great premise, which is a camp for magicians. It had a lot of fun characters, mostly very well done. I think Adam Devine's performance was very good. I do have a little nitpick though. This is my biggest problem with the movie. I think that there's like a little romance between Theo, who's the main character, and another side character, Janelle. I think it was not earned at all. Like there was one scene, and then like the next scene that they were together, they kissed. Like I don't think it was earned. But other than that, it was a pretty good movie. I would recommend it. Clouds is a pretty good story itself, but it's very dramatic and very emotional, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just depends on your tastes in movies. And for me personally, it's not really the type of movie that I would usually watch, not the type of movie that I would like. But it was very emotional, and did put me through all the emotions. It was successful in that. It's very well done, but it's not really my kind of movie. It's not the kind of movie that I like to watch. So that's why it's not like super high on the list, but it's also not super low because it's pretty well done. I just didn't enjoy it that much. I think that this is a pretty good movie with like very fun characters, a pretty fun story. I think it did go by a little bit fast. I don't really know what it is. I think they could have added more, but overall, I think it's pretty good. Togo is a really great story about a very cute dog, Togo, and his owner, played by Willem Dafoe, who I think did a really good job in this movie. Some of my favorite parts of the movie was the flashbacks that they had, showing how his owner like didn't want Togo, was annoyed with Togo, like who was breaking the order. And then years later, Togo is the one that is saving children's lives. And yeah, I think it's a really heartfelt story, very well done. So I'm actually one of the people who read the book Stargirl before the movie came out. So when I saw that there was a movie of it on Disney Plus, I was very excited, and I watched it, and it pretty much lived up to my expectations. Not quite as good as the book, in my opinion, but I do think that they did do some good things with the movie that wasn't in the book. Like they took a lot of the side characters, for example, like Leo's mom and some of the friends, Leo's friends, and they kind of elevated them, made them more important to the story, and gave them more of a focus. And I think that I liked that about it. And overall, it's a pretty good adaptation of a good book. So at sixth place, we've got Hamilton. I think this is a very good musical, and it was a good idea to bring it to Disney Plus so more people could see it. I think the actual plot, like with all the politics and the war, isn't very interesting, but they did do well with the character arcs. So overall, I think it's pretty good. The highlight of it is probably the music, and it is at sixth place. Flora and Ulysses is just really a lot of fun. The humor hit just right. The plot of it was pretty good. I loved all the characters. It had a good theme. All of that. I do think it's a bit unrealistic that a squirrel got superpowers from a vacuum. But I guess you could just forget about that. It's fine. Overall, it's a really fun movie, and I very much would recommend it. I think it also would be very good to watch with family because, well, it is a family movie about family. So, yeah. So at fourth place, I have the Mulan live action remake. So I think this was a pretty good story. They did drastically change the story from the original animated version. Like they removed a whole important character, Mushu, but I do think that Mushu wouldn't have fit into this story, which was much more serious, and I did quite like it. Um, the action, especially, was really good, very well choreographed, very entertaining, very good to look at. All that was probably the highlight of the movie for me. I also really did like the villain, like the witch villain. I'm not gonna go too much into her just to avoid spoilers, but overall, I think it's a very good movie. And it's a pretty good adaptation. Well, not really a good adaptation of the original animated movie, uh, but I do kind of like the changes that they made to it to make it more of a serious and grounded story. At third place, we've got Luca. Luca's got a lot of that Pixar charm to it. It's a pretty simple story itself. Like that stuff like this has been done before. It's not really anything new, not really anything different like Pixar delivers often. But it overall it's pretty charming. At second place, we've got Safety, which is a very inspirational story. I do like that the main character was very likable but not perfect, which is very important for a main character. He did have a lot of flaws, but also a lot of good traits. I think all the other characters were well written as well. Um, I like the team spirit that we got from it, and even if you're not really a big fan of football, I think you'll really like this movie because it's not really about football. Soul is a really great Pixar movie that explores a pretty deep theme, probably deeper than any other Pixar movie. But they also were able to make it entertaining for kids because that is kind of Pixar's target demographic. I think 22 was a really funny character. All the characters were really well done. I think it's a pretty well done story. Um, so yeah. And that's it for this video. If you liked it, give it a like and subscribe because I do reactions for all the shows coming out on Disney Plus, all the Disney Plus originals and the movies. I do reactions and reviews. So if that sounds interesting to you, then subscribe.